f of x minus the line. Simplify, you get 3 over x minus 1. Replace x by infinity, you get 3 over infinity, number over infinity equal to 0. Then, so here we satisfy the rule. Okay? So f of x minus this is equal to 0 as x approaches infinity. So the line of equation y equal to x minus 1 is an oblique asymptote according to this rule.
استاذ امتى بتكون اوبليك؟ انا فهمت بس
Here's this
امتى؟
point. If we have this limit of the function minus y of the line equal to 0.
اوكي equal to 0
is equal to 0. Okay, هاي الرول.
اوكي thank you.
Right. We still have now the relative position, the second part of the question. أنا صفيت الكاميرا. Oblique asymptote. Hi. Can you see it? Still in the summary. Same summary. We explain the vertical, the horizontal, not for the oblique. If the limit of f of x minus ax plus b, a and b of course are real numbers, is equal to 0, always 0, then the straight line of equation y equal this, ax plus b, is an oblique asymptote. And the same idea as I said here for the horizontal asymptote. Could be at positive infinity, could be at negative infinity, could be at both, depending on the function itself, depends on the limit. Because sometimes limit as x approaches positive infinity is 0. But at negative infinity is not 0. So only at positive infinity we have oblique asymptote. Sometimes only at negative infinity the limit is 0. So oblique asymptote at negative infinity. And sometimes, as we saw here part 1, at both negative infinity and positive infinity the limit is 0. Okay? So here oblique asymptote at both positive and negative infinity. Okay? هاي موجودة. Any questions? Do you have any questions? No questions.
لا شكرا.
استاذ بس يعني
May I
انا انه على نيجاتيف والبلس انفينيتي اذا الاكس ابروتشز على نيجاتيف او بلس انفينيتي نفس الشيء يعني.
Behold, the rational functions and the rational functions, it will be the same. At positive infinity, at negative infinity will be the same.
اوكي طيب اذا عندنا كان مثلا 2x minus 1 plus 3x minus 2 فينا ناخد بال 3x وهاي يعني الحالة نعملها لأنه هي approaches to infinity ناخد بس شو اسمه
Highest exponents?
ايه
لا. You simplify, in the first step you simplify, okay? f of x minus the line, you simplify, and then, sorry, and then you take the highest exponents and this one.
اوكي
Okay? Right. The second part of the question, may I erase this? The second part of the question, find the relative positions of C and D. If you still remember, when we studied functions, هذه الworksheets, أول شيء بلشنا limits. We solved some exercises for the relative positions. نقول له مثلا for x is greater than this number, C is above D, and here C is below D, whatever. Okay? But there you are given the function. Sorry, you are given the graph of the function. Here you are given the function and the line, and I need to determine the relative positions. Right. In order to determine the relative positions between the graph of f and the straight line, what you have to do is to study the difference or the sign yc minus yd. I mean here yc, which is f of x, minus the equation of the line, minus 2x minus 1. Yani the limit, in fact. What we studied about the limit. I mean. F of x minus the line, which is 3 over x minus 1. Hello, we just found it. F of x minus the equation of the line, and the limit. 3 over x minus 1. اشترك معنا هيك, limit of 3 over x minus 1. Okay. You have to study the sign of this sign. Determine where it is positive, where it is negative, according to the values of x. Okay. To do that, we draw a table. Values of x from negative infinity to positive infinity. yc minus yd. Okay. Step number 1, in order to determine the sign, حتى أعطيكم إياه بالطريقة البسيطة.
بس ما جبنا YC.
That is f of x. C, to remind you, C is the graph of f. It is the graph of the function. Any point on the graph,
Okay.
has coordinates x, y. Okay? I mean here, y is the of the point on the function. Sorry, point on the graph of the function. Okay, سميتها yc واللي هي f of x, because any point on the graph has coordinates x f of x. The y component is f of x. بس تسمية حطيتها هيك yc انه y
اوكي
is f of x.
يعني والواي دي هذه
y دي هي
الواي سي
y of the straight line دي. يعني إذا زوجتك هي هيك، إذا زوجتك حطها f of x minus this.
اوكي.
Right. In order to call the sign of
minus y.
هلا بشرح لك إياه. Yeah. Now, in order to study the sign of this expression, step number 1, you put it equal to 0. So I need to study the sign of this. Put it equal to 0. Then you use the cross product, I over 1. Cross product, you get 3 is equal to 0, which is impossible, no solution. Now, values of x you are going to put in this table. Any value you'll get here, for example, if you solve this equation and you got, let's say, x equal 2, you put 2 here. But here you don't have any value of x. You are not going to put values of x here from this equation. 2, the domain. X different than 1. You put here 1. بالأساس نحن عم نحكي عن function f. We are studying the function f over its domain. The domain x different than 1. فإذا بدي أحط هيدا ال 1 وشيء. Now, to determine the sign, you choose a number less than 1. Choose any number less than 1. Let's say 0. Replace x by 0 and yc minus yd. Replace x by 0 here. You get 3 over, let's say here, x equals 0. Then 3 over 0 minus 1 is equal to negative 3. Negative number, so you write negative. And in this one, choose a number greater than 1, not necessarily slightly greater than 1. We are not finding limit. The number بدك اياه. Greater than 1, let's say 2. So if x equal 2, replace 3 over 2 minus 1, which is equal to 3. It's positive. So you write here positive. Now, yc minus yd is positive. It means that c is above d. yc is minus yd is negative. It means that c is below d. ليش عم بعمل هيك؟ ليش عم بقول if yc minus yd is negative بتكون below, yc yd is positive بتكون above? For one reason. بدي محي هون. إذا خلصت الكتابة خلينا محي، إذا لا write it in order to erase.
لا أستاذ لطيفة.
Yeah. Write it to explain it. And by the way, this solution is standard. Whenever you are asked to find or to study the relative positions between line and curve, do this. For one reason, when you finish writing
أستاذ بس بليز فيك ترجع تعيدها لهيدي التيبل؟
yc minus yd is equal to this. I need to study the sign of 3 over x minus 1. In order to study the sign of this, step number 1, put it equal to 0. Equal to 0, use the cross product, we get 3 times 1, 3. 0 times x minus 1 is equal to 0. That means that 3 equal to 0. 3 equal to 0 has no solution. So, on the number line here, values of x, from this equation, I don't have any value of x. Right. But from the domain, you have x different than 1, right, denominator. X different than 1. You put 1 here, and you shade. Now, to determine the signs, it's very easy to determine the signs. Choose numbers. Number less than 1, let's say 0. Replace x by 0. Right. In yc minus yd, in 3 over x minus 1. 3 over 0 minus 1, that's negative 3. You write negative. Number greater than 1. Any number. مش هجيب limit لتقلي مثلا 1.1. حتى if you choose 1.1 ما في مشكلة. بس إنه قبل لك you can choose any number. 100 محله معك. If you choose 2, replace 3 over 2 minus 1, which is 3. It's positive, so I write positive. Now in case yc minus yd is negative, then the curve is below the line. The curve below the line. If yc minus yd is positive, then the curve is above the line. ليش بيطلع معي هيك؟ I'll explain it.
اوكي. وضروري نكتب لك يعني نرسم
Can I erase here? أكيد. أكيد. The question, the second part of the question, study the relative positions between the curve and the line. What do you mean by relative positions? اللي كنا بنحكيهم بالأول. Relative positions يعني the curve is above or the curve is below. شو صار معهم الشباب؟ فرد مرة 4-5 طلعوا.
تكون قطعت الكهرباء.
يي استاذ رح تنقطع الكهرباء هسه انا عندي.
حسبتنا يا دانيال. شفت؟
والله عمدني ان شاء الله تنقطع الكهرباء، ان شاء الله تنقطع الكهرباء.
شكلك من الساعة 10 وانت نازل بعيد.
ايه
يب. خلصتوا بعيدة؟ بعيدة عمر رجع، بلش يرجعوا شوي شوي. شو يا عمر؟
أستاذ هلا هو لاين هون بالضبط.
نعم؟
هو لاين دي شو هو بالضبط هون اللي عم ناخد حسب هو كيف.
هو الأوبليك أسيمتوت. هلا برسم لكم الفانكشن بفرجيكم اياها، كل اللي عم نحكيه هون كم؟ شو معناته جرافيكلي هلا بفرجيكم اياها.
اوكي.
ماركر وزن to explain why in the case yc minus yd is negative, then the curve is below the line for one reason. Let's say that here we have the curve and here we have the line. Okay? yc minus yd, we have the same value of x, or the same value of x. Here is point on the curve, has coordinates x, f of x, which is yc, يعني هاي ال yc اللي عم بحكي عنها. And here we have point of coordinates x and y of the straight line d. Similarly here, let's take x, f of x, and point here x, y, d. طبعا مش نفس ال x يعني أكيد. In this case, here, in this part, it's very clear that the curve is above the line. The curve is above the line. What do you mean analytically? Curve is above the line. You know, if you consider 2 points having the same abscissa, this point is above this point, it means the y value here is greater than the y value here. يعني خلينا ناخد numbers. مثلا هاي point with coordinates -3, 2, and this point, نسميها A, and here we have point B with coordinates -3, 5. Okay, B is above A. بداش نحكوا فيه. هاي ال B above A. ليه؟ لأنه we have the same abscissa, relative positions vertically, يعني same abscissa. But the y values, here 5, here 2. يعني ال y لل B is greater than y of A. Here B is above A. ليه؟ Because YB is greater than YA. And of course they have the same x. ما له عليها. إذا مش عم نشوف ال x values any different, مش عم بحكي عن relative positions. Same x value, same value of x. To compare, just compare the y values. Here y of B is greater than YA. So B is above A. طيب نجي لهيك. This point is above this point. The curve here is above the line. So f of x is greater than yd. F of x is greater than yd. Move yd to the left side. So f of x minus yd is greater than 0. So yc minus yd greater than 0. يعني positive, the curve is above the line. The curve here is above the line if yc minus yd is positive. yc minus yd is positive, so the curve is above the line. The curve c is above the line d. Here, the curve is below the line. So f of x is less than yd, or yc is less than y of d. Move d to the left side, or yd. So yc minus yd is negative. بيكون اللاين هو above. ليك حتى نضلنا على نفس التسمية، نفس كل شيء، نفس طريقة الكتابة. دائما بلشوا yc minus yd or f of x minus the equation of the line. and study the relative or study the signs I mean. Okay? ودائما بلش هيك. ليك لا لك شغلة قبل ما نبلش نضيع. لما بيجي بقول إن هون c is below d. c is below the line d. طب ما هي equivalent to say that line d is above the curve c. إذا بيجي واحد هون بيكتب then d is above the line c. ما صح. بس حتى نضلنا كلياتنا نفس الطريقة بالكتابة. خلينا هون yc minus yd دايما. And start here c is above or c is below. حتى ما نضيع بعضنا. مثل ما قلت لك كلهم صح. يعني if you write here yd minus yc and study the signs وتكتب كلهم صح. The signs will be the opposite. بس هو اللي بيكتبوا بالقلب يعني تكتب هون c is above d or sorry d is above c. بيطلعوا بنفس الاسلوب بيطلعوا مضبوطين بس خلينا كلنا نفس طريقه الكتابه.
اوكي. طب بس اذا كان بوزيتيف نيجاتيف بتصير تحت الكيرف صح؟
اذا ليك كيف ممكن تعيد؟
اذا كانت بوزيتيف نيجاتيف تكون تحت اللاين.
بوزيتيف بعدين نيجاتيف؟
ايه
بوزيتيف يعني c is above the line دي. negative the c is below the line يعني بلش فوق اللاين بعدين بينزل تحت.
اوكي
طيب
يعني الكيرف
the graph of this function اللي كنا عم نشتغلها وفرجيك كيف يعني عم بيطلع معنا الاشياء انه above the line or below the line, whatever. The function was get it to x minus 1, to x minus 1, minus or plus. That's a 3 over x minus 1. Here is the graph of the function. And the straight line of equation y is equal to 2x minus 1. Here is the oblique asymptote. As you can see, oblique asymptote. The graph at infinity, like the graph is very close to the line. That seems to be the line itself. And at negative infinity, the line is very close to the curve, or the curve is very close to the line. مبين كأنه هو ذاته. Okay? And at x equal 1, in fact, here we have vertical asymptote. ما جبناه. Right. According to this table, اللي احنا شفناه قبل شوي, if x is less than 1, the curve is below the line. Like when x equal 1. When x is less than 1, look, the curve here, the green one, is below the oblique asymptote y equal to x minus 1. هذا oblique asymptote, 2x minus 1. As you can see here, the curve is below the line. And in the second part, we found that if x is greater than 1 in the table, in the table, if x is more than 1, from 1 to infinity, the curve is above the line. X is greater than 1 here, L1, greater than 1. The curve, this curve, the green one, this curve, as you can see, it is above this line, the oblique asymptote y equal to x minus 1. شايفوا؟ هذا الكيرف مبين هو فوق اللاين. And as you can see here, there is no intersection between the line and the curve. ليش ما طلع عنا intersection؟ لأنه لما نحن حطينا ال yc minus yd equal 0 ما طلع عنا solution. لو طلع عنا solution, هذا السوليوشن بيكون عندك intersection between the curve and the line, which is part B. part 2 هلا رح نشتغل. تعبتكم شوي؟
يا أستاذ بلا ما نشتغله.
ولا؟
لا ما حنكون كثير مركزين.
طيب. ماشي. رح أعطيكم إياه هومورك هيدا بارت 2. أوكي؟ بس هومورك الكل بده يشتغلوا. واضح؟ اللي صار اليوم مثل ما حكيت بالأول، اللي صار اليوم رح أعتبر إنه ما صار، لأنه اللي بيعطيني الهومورك عدد قليل. أوكي؟ رح أعتبر إنه هذا الشيء ما صار. next time يعني نهار الاثنين مش حكون متساهل.
اوكي استاذ.
اوكي استاذ بس بدي احكي ريمارك. اوكي بس بدي احكي ريمارك صغيره وانت عم تشتغلوا ببارت 2.
اوكي
وين في معي؟
ما استاذ بس بسألك سؤال. بالجراف اللي انت راسمه بالهذا يا سي ويا دي؟
السي هو الكيرف ذا جرين وان.
اي جرين هوني؟ لا على التيبل اللي عاملها انت مش هونيك.
هاي؟
ايه
الكيرف هذا الكيرف سي، هذا الكيرف سي وهذا ستريت لاين دي. طبعا مش عم بحكي هذا الكيرف للفانكشن اللي عندنا اياها، عم بحكي ان جنرال.
اوكي عم بقول انا كيف لا سي بلو دي هي.
لا عم بحكي هذا ان جنرال.
ماشي استاذ.
طيب وين ريمارك بس حتى ما تضيعوا انتوا تشتغلوا ببارت 2. We said here in the table, values of x you are going to put here in the domain, values in the domain. يعني هون طلع عنا x different than 1 بدي احط 1. لو طلع عندي مثلا x different than 2 and negative 3 بدي احط negative 3 و 2. اوكي وبعد في شغله نفترض انت عم تشتغل. اوكي we got for example yc minus yd is equal to عم بحكي من عندي let's say 2x minus 4 over x squared plus 1 for example, and then you are going to put it equal to 0. Use the cross product, then 2x minus 4 equal 0, and so x equal 2. And value كمان 2 بتحطها بالتable. This value 2, you have to put it in the table. In fact, here at this point, you will have intersection. يكون عندنا intersection between the curve and the line. Okay? And to find the coordinates of this point of intersection, you have x equal to replace x by 2 in the function or in the line, واحدة منهم, to find y. هتطلع point of intersection between the curve and the line.
استاذ بس بنحطها كدومين على التيبل.
بتحطها على التيبل وبتحط الدومين الزياده.
نمبر 2 والنمبر 3
فرض اعملها شوي. فرض طلع عندك انت هون 1 هيدا الدومين وطلع عندك x equal 2 رح تحط كمان هون 2 وبتكمل بنفس الطريقه. ايش كنت بتسالني؟ وئام او دانيال ما بعرف.
استاذ عم بقول لك يعني بيطلع معنا جواب x equal 2 يعني بس نجيب الواي يعني هي كلها يعني مثلا اخذنا الواي اوف دي نحن وعوضناها ب2 نحط الجواب كمان بالتيبل.
لا ما بنحطها بالتيبل، هي بتكون coordinates للpoint of intersection. ما بتحطها بالتيبل لا. اوكي؟ طيب
تمام.
Enjoy your weekend. See you on Monday.
باي استاذ.
استاذ شو الهوم اللي عنا اياه؟
part 2 هو ذات exercise number 4 part 2. انا رح اكتب على الجروب وبعتكم اياه.
بس part 2؟
بس part 2 ايه.
اوكي.
اوكي.
باي
Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye.